Right folks, well today's exciting mission is to move the 1950 Commer Superpoise race car transporter from its little home, where it's been the last few years there, over to here, so that I can photograph it and just get it more accessible for moving on to a new home once it's been advertised and sold. I did sort of talk about this a little bit in the previous video, because the idea was basically to rescue it. This was quite a few years ago, because its future was looking a bit less than certain. Being a bit of a sucker for these old lorries, I thought I'd offer it a home. Now, it wasn't as straightforward. I had to have it transported up here and extend the driveway. None of this was here before. This was all grass. So I had to extend the driveway by about 40 feet just to accommodate this. But to have it restored or to work on it, it needs to be undercover and in the garage. And to do that, I would have to pay for Big Dodge to go into storage. And the whole idea of moving here, many years ago now, was not to have to pay any storage. Careful. No, not to pay any storage on the Dodge, because that's just dead money really. So, as the Dodge isn't going anywhere, this unfortunately will have to. So, the first thing to do is uncover it, drag it out, and then get on with it really. As you can see, the cover suffered a bit with Storm Arwen, and that really just hastened my decision to find a new home for it. Now, the first thing I did was check that the tyres hold air on each corner. It's twin wheels at the back. One of the ones this side holds air, so that's okay. This one is the spare, because the tyre that was on there refused to hold air. But fortunately, I was able to clamber down here. Down here. And the spare wheel sits underneath the back over there, so I was able to get that off, clamber in there and drag the wheel out. Unfortunately, it holds air, so that's all very good. This one's okay. And one of the wheels and tyres at the back this side holds air for a few days, long enough to move it anywhere. So that's the plan for today, get this moved. Now I'm going to try towing it with the Jeep and just see how we get on. I have put some wood under these front tyres just to sort of stop it sinking in while it's been parked here. So I'm hoping it'll roll reasonably well. It did when we collected it all those years ago, so I'm hoping there won't be too many issues on that score today, but until we get crack on with it we won't really know. So first thing is, let's sort of pull the cover back and see what we're able to do. There are many cobwebs around here. I'll have to empty the cab a little bit of cobwebs too, because it's a bit of arachnoid activity in there, so it's not very pleasant to sit in there. Right. Yeah, so if we just pull the cover off the front anyway, that'll do for the purposes of moving it. Right, I'll just have to tuck this rope up somewhere.
There we go.
Good job. Right. Well, there we go. It's a bit more exposed now. What I did do is, if you can see up there, I actually put some pieces of wood and some metal, like old fencing really. And what that allowed it was to have like an air gap underneath most of the cover, so that's helped preserve it. So it's not actually any worse than it was, when it came here several years ago, because it allowed the breeze. On a windy day you could see the cover just lifting a bit, which meant that there was a current of air around there. And it's actually, obviously it needs fully restoring, but it's actually way better than Big Dodge was when I found that. It's just scruffy, but structure-wise it's actually pretty good. It's amazing really, considering how it's 72 years old now. So for it to have lasted this long is quite something. The front wings are repairable. A few little bits on the bonnet edges, but that's all doable. But it would make a great period race car transporter, because that's what it's been for most of its life. It started out with Forte's, the restaurant and ice cream business, back in 1950, and I've got a photo of it when it was brand new, because I tracked down the supplying dealer, which is still around, and they had a look in their archives up in the loft of the garage, and back in 1950 they sold and bodied this old truck, which was, I couldn't believe it, that they actually turned up this photograph of it when it was brand new. KEL 488 still on its original reg. But I won't talk too much about the history of it here, because I've done a separate video about the history of this truck way back, and how it got into being used as a race car transporter for an Allard J2R based sports car, the Sphinx. It's also carried the Jaguar C-Type and the Lola Mark II single seater, so it's certainly had quite a rich history throughout its life as a race car truck, throughout the 1960s and into the beginning of the 1970s. I think the last race it went to was at Crystal Palace in London, I seem to remember. So yeah, it's certainly got all the history, and it's really just a blank canvas for anyone who wanted to build a proper original race car truck that was used in the period. It'd be great. There's no sponsor logos or anything on this one, unlike the Dodge, so it's a real blank canvas. You could just put whatever you want on it. It'd look really great with a team name just above the screen painted up there. That would look really good. There's some sort of race car, a race team name or logo up there. It'd be a great old thing once it's done. And I'd be sorry to see it go. Anyway, let's crack on. What do you think?
Nice, but too much work for us.
Yeah, it's just the space it needs as well.
Have you seen the inside of the seat? No, you gotta look at the inside of the seat.
Yeah, I think it's been...
What has happened there?
I think it looks like it's been burnt. Just that corner of the seat.
What is that?
I think it's just been burnt.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's not pretty, is it? But everything, I mean, structurally, you know, all these wooden door pillars and everything, they're all really, really good. It's incredibly, it's just how well it survived. No, yes.
I remember sitting here like.
Yeah, well, you'll be sitting here again shortly. I mean, it's super original down to the last box of tissues, Cleveland Fuels tissue box up there. Old matches.
Arachnophobe paradise.
Yes. Yeah, if you don't like spiders, this isn't the place for you. You might want to take your smart shirt off. Have you just put that on? Yeah. Right, let's crack on. Let's get some wind. Now the outer tyre doesn't seem very happy at holding air, but the inner one does. So I just need to get at the valve. Should start to see. Just a bit awkward to get up there again. So it should start to see here.
You can hear the rubber.
I mean, this tyre doesn't hold air, so the inner one is just lifting it all up. Holds sufficient air to roll, that's all it's got to do. It's amazing just how good the structure is. The wooden door supports the steps, you can step on them. You know, it's just, and this is like a rear side access door which leads you inside. So you've obviously got a passenger door this side, the driver's doors, and this is the entrance, the side door. And that it just shuts so, probably can't see it really well, but it just goes, there's no dropping or sagging, it just shuts so well. And even along here, it's not to say there aren't panels required, but it's all flat sheeting, so it would actually be fairly simple restoration. There's not much in the way of compound curves, whereas Big Dodge had quite a few compound curves, which just complicated matters a bit. But even the door pillars, apart from a little bit at the bottom there, most of it is just incredibly sound. I just don't know, because it was stored in an open-sided barn, so it wasn't perfect by any means, and it's full of rubbish in the back, which meant that the rear floors rotted out the last few feet of the floorboards are planking in the back. But that's a really easy fix. We'll have a proper look once it's outside, or rather once it's moved out of this corner. Right, well, that's the tyres up. The covering I've moved it back enough, sufficiently to not get in the way as we pull it forwards. I'd like to keep the cover up there because I can just roll it back down again once it's in its new position, temporary position. So we just have to go over part of the lawn, so we've got a few bits of wood out because leaving grooves on the grass doesn't really go down very well, which is fair enough. So the idea is to pull it forward and slowly bring it over towards the gravel bit of the drive, just avoiding this corner up here. but there's a fair bit of gap there, so we should be alright. I'll probably put the spare wheel back underneath the back once I can get around there properly. But yeah, it's a lovely old truck. If I had somewhere dry to keep it, and I'd stash it away, you know, longer term, but really it's not going to get done just sitting here. So I think it's probably time for it to go, or at least test the water and see what interest there is in it. Lots of people have recreated old transporters, but there are very few that are actually used sort of in the 50s, 60s period. But this was definitely used throughout the 1960s and went to all the race meetings, or many race meetings and hill climb venues for over 10 years probably. So it deserves to live again. There's a very sturdy old rope here which should do the trick. The whole idea as well is to also tidy up this corner of the garden, because I mean I've been sort of sorting through stuff and digging things out, which is why it's looking a bit chaotic. It's not usually as awful as this, but if the Commer goes, I'd like to try and get like an open fronted carport type thing put here, because this is getting a bit rickety, this old shelter, so that can come down and get something a bit more presentable and usable in its place. That's the idea anyway, so one step at a time. The first thing is, once we've had a cup of coffee, is to see if we can actually pull this out with the Jeep. Failing that, I know it turns over on the starter, so I've charged up a big 12-volt battery, and I can put the battery on under here, and we can put it in gear and move it slowly on the starter if need be, because I know the starter works. Well, it did last time I tried it anyway. So we've got a few options for moving it, but the first thing is to see if the Jeep will shift it. It should do, but we'll just have to see.
The glamour of classic truck ownership.
Well, the idea is just to see if it'll move at all. We'll just move it forward a foot or so, and then we'll just see if it'll actually turn.
You like that?
Wrap this round here.
Greasy.
Greasy is good.
That's a chunky rope. See if it'll move at all. Just a little bit. It is moving very slightly. Oh, that's not good. That's not gone well. Uh-oh.
Scrap that plate off and...
That's not good.
That's handy, isn't it? Right, okay. That's annoying. Let's carry on. At least it's out of the way.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's just a little crack. Take two. We're not pulling it all the way yet, we're just giving it a little tug just to make sure it will actually move. It seems to be moving. There you go. So now it's my job to go... That didn't happen. Now it's my job to go in here and do the steering.
Well, we've established that it actually moves. I've moved it a foot or so on the ground. We're just onto the edge of the pieces of wood here. So that's good. So, yeah, we're just going to pull it up now. Harley's going to get in. You're going to clamber in.
Yay.
Go on, in you go. That's not the original handle, by the way. Yeah, but that's not the original. That's not the original. I just put.
Funny.
Yeah, but I just put that in there just to. So if you clamber on board.
Those seats.
Yes, indeed. This will scare the spiders. So we've got photos of you sat here when we moved it last time, haven't we?
Same angle.
Yes. So you're ready to go. So when we start moving, just give it a bit of right hand down.
Right.
Sort of roughly aim for where the rope is now. Can you see where the rope is?
Yes, I can.
Down there. if you aim for that, and then we should clear this post okay, but I'll stop a couple of times just to make sure we're not going to hit anything. What are we doing?
Well, it's the back wheels.
Looking good. It's on the gravel now anyway, so I'll just pull it forward a bit. If you get a bit more lock over this way, Hal, that's it. Yeah, and then we can move it backwards after. So I'll keep going until it's more or less straight. Right, to get it back down the slope, I've got this towing pole here, this solid bar, so this is going to attach to the front axle. As it's going downhill, that'll help it a little bit, so we'll just sort of manoeuvre it down there so it's out of the way. So let's get this thing connected. There we go, all the covers are off. It's the first time I've seen it like that for quite a few years actually. Kind of think maybe I should keep it, but no, I must be strong. Must be strong. It's a great looking old lorry. Just love the way this closes. Just fantastic. The roof originally was covered in like a Rexine material. Some of it had gone by the time I found the truck, the rest of it disappeared en route along the M5, so I had to stop and pick it up. There's a set of the original wheels for the Sphinx, the Allard based sports car, still with the Dunlop racing tyres. It's had a bit of a brush out in here. And apart from, like I say, apart from a little bit at the bottom of the door pillar there, the wood, all this is actually pretty good. And again, the doors just shut really nicely. So I think I can probably take some photos and get the old girl advertised. There's a fair bit to do, but it's all flat sheet. All this is just flat sheet screwed to an inner frame, and most, I'd say at least 90%, 95% of the inner wood frame is really good. There's just a bit at the back here, but most of it is pretty good. The back edge of the floor rotted away because in the barn that it was in, it was like a half open sided barn, and there was all junk in here and mattresses and old carpets which got damp, which is why the back edge of the floor's disappeared. So it will need some extra or some new planking towards the back of the floor there, but and again this panel here, which would have had lights in and whatnot, it's just a flat piece, so that needs to come off, fix up what's behind and replace it with some new sheet. So there's plenty to do, but it's not desperately complicated, I don't think. Anyway, that was just a short video just showing us moving the old girl out after several years of being sat in the same position. It actually went more smoothly than I thought it would do, which which is always nice when it works that way round. But it helps having the right gear, the right towing frame, a decent tow car, big heavy rope, and so on. And it just makes life a whole lot easier. And a new home has been found for the 1950 Commer Superpoise. It's a very sad day, in fact it's going to be collected tomorrow. So this is the last evening that the two transporters will be together in the same home. I'm very sorry to see this go, I really am. Not everyone shares that view, as you might expect, but it's the sensible thing to do. But it was nice having the two of them here together. This one's not going anywhere. But this one, well, I decided in the end, unless I had suitable space, because I couldn't contain a load of money at it, as we had to do with that one about 10, 11 years ago, whenever it was now. So the only realistic way this one was going to get done is if I found some storage to put the Dodge into, clear out this top garage, and then at least there'd be room for the Commer in there and all the space around it to be able to work on it. But I didn't want to get into having to pay to store the Dodge, and the whole idea of moving here was to have this at home, so I'm not relying on other people for storing stuff. So really, being sensible, the Commer had to find a new home, and off it goes tomorrow. Now hopefully it'll go on to be restored back to a race car transporter, which it was all those years ago, until about 1971 when it came off the road. And hopefully one day I'll see photos of it in its shiny new paint scheme, whatever paint scheme it goes into. But all I hope is that it goes on to survive as a rare example of a post-war car transporter. Obviously the works teams used to have all the fancy gear, and your privateer drivers, your weekend race drivers if you like, they used to buy an old van like this and just convert it, put a winch in the back and so on, a few boards of wood, and off they'd go carrying their race car to meets at the weekends. Both these trucks were used for that. The Dodge was used from probably the late 40s until 1955 when it came off the road and the guy who owned it stopped racing entirely. This one was used throughout the 60s until 1971. I think the last outing was Crystal Palace, the race circuit in London. Then it got laid up in a Somerset barn, and that was that until I retrieved it from there in 2014, I think it was. Anyway, it's off tomorrow, so it's a bit of a sad day really, seeing the two of them together for the last time. But like I say, hopefully onwards and upwards, and the Commer will find a bright new future with somebody else. Thanks very much for watching. Loads of other videos on the channel, including a few about the Dodge and one or two about the Commer when we had a bit of a tinker with it a little while ago. So if you've not seen those lorry videos, I'll include a link at the end of this one, and more videos along very, very soon. So bye for now.